Hello gamers and welcome to Game Up. I'm Elwood.
I'm Kim.
And this is our review of Until Dawn. Until Dawn is an interactive drama survival horror adventure video game, according to Wikipedia at least, and this is developed by Supermassive Games. This is a game much like the Telltale games in which your choices do matter, and as we will certainly go over the course of this review, we will obviously go into a bit of how those play out, but basically the game follows a group of 8 teenagers who are staying up at a cabin in the fictional Blackwood Mountains, and this is 1 year after 2 of their friends disappeared after a prank went kind of astray. And soon the gang obviously find themselves being stalked by a mass serial killer and other weirdness happening around them, and it's your choice as the player to make choices, make the right interactions, and certainly find clues to unmask the mystery, and ideally make sure that all your characters make it until dawn. Kim, I mean, this is obviously an old game. It's released in 2015, but we've just had the sequel, The Inpatient, which is actually a prequel, which has just been released, frustratingly for PlayStation VR. But, I mean, how did you obviously find Until Dawn?
Until Dawn is pretty engaging in the sense that you really feel that your choices really make a difference in how the game proceeds. Whether that's actually the case, I don't know. Like, I'd probably have to go back and play it. But I actually think that it would probably, because when I was doing some research before the show, I had read an article that said that there is a possibility that you actually can save everybody and get out of there. But just another thing was, Supermassive Games did not develop Heavy Rain.
Okay.
It was, yeah.
We'll edit that part out.
But, yeah. Yeah. So we're editing that part out. I just wanted to tell you that. Yeah, but I mean, Supermassive Games did a really good job with Until Dawn, in the sense that, like, I mean, they've really wrote out this sort of game, and you can tell that it's been really popular just from the fact that, you know, they have Rush of Blood in VR, obviously, and that was probably the hint that their prequel was going to be The Inpatient with the VR, as you mentioned before. Obviously, they also recently had Hidden Agenda that came out, which is a PlayLink game for PlayStation that you can play with your friends. So, you know, good stuff for Supermassive Games. Until Dawn definitely was a nice start for them.
Yeah, I mean, certainly looking at Until Dawn, I mean, this is 2015, so this game's about 3 years old, but it looks absolutely incredible. The character models in particular, I mean, it's almost photorealism that you're working with here. The actual modeling of these characters looks so good, and the environments especially all look really nice, and be it if you're like going through the snowy woods, there's a really prolonged section where you're walking from the main cabin to the guest lodge, and you're walking seemingly forever through these woods, but the environment is so detailed, and you're seeing like the footprints in the snow, and it just looks so incredible that you feel very immersed. And there's so many times playing this game that I forgot that I'm actually playing a game. It felt kind of like an interactive movie that I'm playing through. Certainly, unlike the Telltale games, though, the choices that I'm making, be it even just like subtle little things, such as if I had like Ash pick up the scissors and then she uses them to stab the killer, I had the feeling that if I had not found the scissors, that what would she have done? Would she had a different interaction? So I feel that there's certainly subtle little changes there, and throughout the game you have this reoccurring theme of the butterfly effect, that your choices will have a knock-on effect. And we also get these little totems that are scattered through the levels, which give you hints or clues of fates that could outcome characters. So it's funny in how it plays with how you play the game. It's constantly challenging you. You like get a hint of something, you think, oh, if I do this action, then I'm going to have that outcome, and I want to avoid that because I want all these characters to survive. Also, when we have the interactions between the characters, there's a much more sort of strength put on like the outcome and how it affects your relationship. So if you with certain characters, they don't like each other, so you can either antagonize it further or you can try and build bridges, which was a really nice characteristic. And certainly between certain characters, they will either form relationships or they just remain as friends, depending on the choices you make and how much you're sort of working to build their relationship. So, I mean, the choices, I mean, how did you find the choice-based system for this game especially?
You know, I liked it, but I think that there needed like it took a little while for me to get used to, because you know we're so used to the Telltale system of like pressing the triangle and square or whatever, like PlayStation controls to get your whichever command you want to choose. But this one, there's really usually just two choices, and you have to press your right stick, left or right, in order to get it. And to me, at times, I felt a little clunky because it was in this very inconvenient spot sometimes, and you like right after you would think, oh well, what if this scene leads to something else that happens right away, and then you need to like quickly do something and you can't react fast enough. And I mean, there were a couple of times that I did talk to you about during like, you know, off air as I was playing the game, that I felt like, you know, the like certain choices weren't as clear as it needed to be in the direction that they wanted me to choose. And I don't know if it was deliberate in the sense that the game wanted you to make that choice because they wanted you to gear into doing that. And like they were forcing that sort of outcome. Like I think that's one of the main things, right? If you replay the game, you'd have a good idea whether these scenes were scripted that way to make that outcome happen. And it always made you feel like, oh my God, why did you not react the way I wanted you? Why did I kill the wrong person, you know, or something like that, you know? It was just, you know, it just, you know, really had that feeling. And at the same time, you know, talking about choices, I sometimes wondered, because at the end of every chapter, we would be encountered as, you know, the villain. And in his perspective, as the psychiatrist at the sanatorium was talking to him. And, you know, this is Peter Stormare screaming at your face or talking some sort of things. And, you know, I love Peter Stormare as an actor. So I was totally convinced in this role that he took because it fit him so well. And it was just like, it felt like when he was making you go through these drills that kind of got harder and harder as you made the choices that was more tailored to the situation and to the characters, you started like really thinking about, you know, just if those choices would craft how, you know, the villain would be at the same time. And I don't know, maybe I was thinking too much. But it's just, you know, these are the things that goes through your head as you're playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Peter Stormare as the psychiatrist is such a great interlude, because the game itself is broken up into like almost like episodes, so it's almost like you're playing through a TV series, and we even get recaps. So you'll play through an episode, and then you have the little sit down moment with your psychiatrist, and he goes through different tests, as you mentioned already. I mean, it's sort of like, oh, which of these, you get like given options. It's like, which of these scares you the most? And then he almost like, you feel like you're being psychoanalyzed as you're playing it, and that he's really responding to what you're saying. And certainly your choices that you make do affect aspects of the game. Certainly in terms of the psychiatrist's office, such as if you say that you don't like clowns, then the mannequin in his office will suddenly be wearing a clown mask the next time you come back to him. So it's very subtle little changes in there, but at the same time, like so much of this game, it gets inside your head. So you think that these choices are making huge impacts on the game, and certainly every little, even when I was like making choices, there was constantly like this feeling in the back of my mind that I wanted to go back the next time and do like the different choice. And it'd be something like really simple, such as you have two characters, like you'd have like Jess and Mike, and they're having this flirtatious encounter, they're having a snowball fight, and you have the option to either kiss or hit him with a snowball. And like the first time I was like kiss, because for some reasons we mentioned on the show before, I feel compelled to make video game characters make out with each other. So it's sort of like I want to go back next time and like see, if I hit him with the snowball, because actually, that's a more flirtatious move, and see what the outcome is, rather than trying to get video game characters to hook up for whatever reason I feel compelled to.
Well, I mean, if you want to watch her throw a snowball at him, then just watch our playthrough, which is me playing, obviously. So I threw the snowball.
Well, I mean, even earlier still, and this is a very minor sort of spoiler alert, you're playing through what's almost like a demo of how the mechanics are going to work, where you're playing as the two sisters and you're running through the woods, and it's like, do you choose the safe path or do you choose the dangerous path? And because you know that characters can die, you're constantly questioning, like, when you approach these things, it's like, do I take this risk and potentially lose this character? And the big finale of this opening prologue is that you're hanging off a cliff with your sister, and you have the option to either help her up or drop her. And I felt like so mean, because I just went and drop her for some bizarre reason. And again, you just think, if I help her out, do we survive, or is it still going to end badly? And the choices are just so fun to make, and it's something that really helps this game in the fact that you have choices that you're torn constantly. That there's be like two choices that you really want to see the outcome of. Whereas with like Telltale games in the past, it's normally like you have like that one outcome that you really want to see, and you don't. The other one is sort of more a passing interest. It may be interesting to see, but it's obviously not going to be as good as the one you choose. So it's really commendable for the writing, especially the fact that you're constantly in this position of, am I best taking risks, or am I best playing it safe? Certainly when we have like chase sequences in this game, because it really bombards you with like quick time events and quick choices, and you're like, it really plays off the panic that you're in. It's all like, should I hide? Should I keep running? It's like, what should I do? And I just, as I said, it just constantly added to this like immersive experience that I found myself in. And the fact it's in chapters is even better, because if you're playing it episodically, like over a series of nights, and just like do one chapter, the cliffhangers are so good that you're like, I've got to just like play one more. I've got to see what happens next. Rather than if it done as one continuous stream. I think it would perhaps have lost some of that power.
And then this brings to the point, I think, that it's very important that I feel that we should talk about, because we've been comparing this to Telltale games. And I think one of the strong points of it is that this was released in one shot, despite it being broken up into chapters. And really like being kind of like a Netflix series sort of style, right? Like just it drops all at one time, and you can play it whenever you want. Where I think if it had that stagger release, you would lose that while, you could play this through all at once, and you were saying about how, you might actually lose the momentum of it, where playing it in like maybe like 2-3 chapters a night is really like worth it. I agree with that completely, because even if you like look at it, every single chapter is about, like every single episode is about 40 minutes or so. It's about 40 to 45 minutes long. That's considering that, you've done clue searching, and you've, went to do all these things, and you've taken it slowly, and you've really like, thought about what you need to do. And, most episodes are in that length. And I think that, another part of this is, now, like for us playing it now, I think it shows a lot also, because I think it also deserves to be talked about in the sense that like the characters in it are, some of these people have gotten really big roles now in TV series or movies, or they've had a name for themselves. And some of these names are familiar, like Josh is played by Rami Malek, and then Sam is Hayden Panettiere, which, probably had the most fame when this was done. And, Brett Dalton, who plays Mike. You have Jordan Fisher, who plays Matt, who was in that Live Grease special. And, and,
what a selling point.
Oh, no, it was really good. I liked it. I thought he did a really great job. But, it really like, these characters does such a great job, and they're captured so well, in the sense that, you're watching this now, and while they're familiar faces to you, you still feel very immersed, like you're like you said, you're watching a movie, or even though it's in third person, it's so hard to feel so immersed when it's third person sometimes, and this game does such a great job at that.
It certainly does. And again, as we said before, the previously on Until Dawn sections, I just love those because it keeps you in the flow of the story. It constantly reminds you of what happened last time, and it ties into your choices. I mean, the fact is, this game can be played as a 9-hour straight playthrough, but at the same time, it has such a strict autosave. So if you make a bad choice, it's not the case of, oh, I'm just going to reload it. It doesn't play like that. You have to restart the game over and go all the way back through. It's got such a strict autosave. So if you make a choice, then you're tied to it for that playthrough. Once I was to change your mind, as I said before, you've got to go back and start over. And depending on who makes it to the end credits, there are, from the developer's perspective at least, they're saying there's around hundreds of different endings based on like the combination of characters that you have left over, and choices that you make. So it really adds to that replay value. And certainly, as we said before, with the choices obviously being so intriguing, you constantly want to see how things will play out if you did things a little differently, or if you want to find those like missing clues, because as you find clues, you get a video that you can piece together, but it gets breaks in it where you have clues missing, so you get little snapshots of the backstory of this mystery, which is just really really interesting to see. But the setting itself, I mean, we're obviously up in the mountains. We've got this mansion, we've got the cabin, we've got mines, we've got a sanatorium. There's all these really interesting locations that you play through. The frustrating part I found, though, that we've got this mansion, but apparently it's got no lights.
But I know, I found that really weird because they were going in, they were like, oh, we have to light a fire and it's super cold. And I was like, what, you got a cabin in the woods? You have one dinky fireplace in like the main lodge area and that's it? I have a fireplace. I own a fireplace. I know that's not how it works.
It's so frustrating because they have power, because they're running like the hot tub and everything else, but apparently lights are sort of an afterthought to these people. So everything's covered in this constant grey gloom, which is a little frustrating, and it's really annoying if you go outside the mansion, it's actually brighter out there than it is inside the bloody mansion. But it's just the way that they develop, and this mansion sort of explores. I mean, the secret passages, there's all these like aspects that the killer brings, because there's like a sequence where you find like a dollhouse, which he uses to taunt certain characters, by linking back to hinting at the reason that they're in this situation, and it's generally creepy. I mean, I was surprised by how effective I was with this game. I mean, I was playing like 1-2 chapters and I was like done. It was like, I have to go and play something happy. I have to go and watch cartoons or something to calm myself down before bed. Is like,
yeah, definitely. I mean, this game was really intense. Like, I think in the earlier chapters it was okay. Like, you were able to do like 1 or 2 chapters, but by the time we hit like chapter 6 and 7, I honestly could only do 1 chapter at a time, or else I would just like, I'd be at the end of my nerves. There was like all these quick time events, all these crucial choices, and all these, well, not crucial, but like critical choices. And you just like, the story's really unraveling at this point, and you're starting to see the different arcs they're building on. And I think that really talks about like just the story and like the writing that they put together for this game. But it's hard to talk about the story without giving away spoilers, which is something we don't want to do, obviously, because if you haven't played this game, then, we want to encourage you to play it.
As for these characters, because they all have very unique personalities. I mean, was there any characters that you were trying to save more than others? Because certainly there was characters which I was treating kind of like when you play The Sims and you create a sim you don't like, so you have them like fixes the TV with no electrical skills, or you use them as like your crash test dummy to try and kill off. There's certain characters here, such as Matt, who I just really didn't care about, and just like, what's the riskiest situation I can put him in?
Well, I think that before we talk about it, I think it's important to say that like this is a horror game that actually feels like a very well done 80s movie sort of style, in that sense that your two group of characters are actually very reminiscent of a grouping of a typical horror movie. You know, you have like the bitchy girl, the slutty girl, and you have, you know, the brainy girl, and, you know, and at the same time, you also have the guys, which is, you know, one is more considerate, kind, you know, more shy. And then you have, you know, the douchebag. And, you know, you have a really good mixture of these characters. Obviously, they have a bit of depth to them as well, because you're playing them for so many episodes. And for me, I think, like, obviously, I went with the obvious choice who played, like, a bitchy character, and that was Emily. I didn't like her at all, but to be fair, I think my end goal of the game was to try to save as many people as possible. So I wanted to, you know, get out of this with as many wins as possible, because as you play the game, you really feel that, you know, it's hard, because very early in the game, I think like what you're talking about is that making those choices on which character you valued more would result in a character that would die. And, you know, we were talking about it. You told me the way that I would have survived that. And the reason why I hadn't done the path that you were telling me about was because I was trying to save everyone. So I was trying to get that character to reach the other character in the safest way possible. Yeah. And I took less of the, you know, the riskier moves, because I feared that he would die. And I think that was the thing, is, you know, you never know. Like if I were to do this game again, which I probably will, you know, maybe in a month or two, would be like really to try it out, to see, like, you know, if I were to do the risky moves for all the characters, how that would turn out. But obviously, if I were to want someone to win, like someone to get out of this alive, it would have to be Sam. I thought that she was a really good character for who she was. And she, you know, she's kind of neutral. She's smart. She's, you know, she's the typical girl you want to save kind of thing.
Yeah, she's sort of like, she's got all the characteristics of being the final girl.
Yeah,
even though
exactly.
she does disappear for a very prolonged time to have a bath.
And then she spends another part of that time running around in a towel. So
I think Chris and Ash were the couple I was like really caught up in their story. I don't know, because I think because they're both sort of like the nerdy kids.
Yeah, they're nerdy and they're kind, you know. They don't really have a mean bone in them. Yeah, you know, like Chris is a little goofy and he does like stupid tricks sometimes, but he's still, you know, there's a lot of depth in their character, and we spend a good amount of time with them.
Yeah. And when it actually comes to, if you want to save all the characters in this game, you're going to have like razor sharp reactions, because you only have to throw like one quick time event and then you can doom a character. I will just say that much. I'm not even going to say there's like so many situations where you're presented with situations where you're going to have to choose which of your characters you're going to lose. So to the certain swords and style traps where you just basically, it says like, which of them are you going to save? And you have to make a choice. And it's really it just only adds to that edge to it. So
yeah, I think those are the scenes that really that was what I was talking about before, where I felt like the structure of the choice was not easy to figure out sometimes. And I remembered on 2 accounts, I felt like I kept choosing the wrong person, because it was like the opposite of who I wanted to choose, because I misunderstood the way they formed the question, you know, in your choice.
It's so rare to find a game that scares you. I mean, obviously we like custom mind backs, like on the PlayStation, we have Resident Evil and Silent Hill, which managed to achieve it. And certainly with more modern games, it's very rare. I mean, obviously, like Outlast, Oxenfree, these are like rare examples that have really managed to get under your skin and really psychologically dig in there. And I think Until Dawn is again another very strong contender for that sort of game. I know there's probably going to be some people out there who are like, oh, I wasn't scary at all. I was not scared in the slightest, and I'm thinking, well, good for you. But this, for myself, this was bloody scary as hell. And I was on the edge like completely the whole way through. And I'm really looking forward to like getting back in it, or maybe like playing it with like my wife or something, and just have her make the choices. And to see how that plays out and see what sort of choice someone else's makes. But for myself, I'm going to give this a strong 5 out of 5. But what about yourself, Kim?
Despite, me still having some issues with it, I still think this is a 5 out of 5 game. Mostly because I do believe that, mechanics and stuff, it's very like, I tend to have like problems with game mechanics all the time. So I always give it a little bit of leniency. But for what this game has achieved, like just really having that, they blend, let's just put it this way. It's a horror game that works really good in building the atmosphere and creating both atmospheric scares and a mixture of jump scares very effectively. And for that, giving you characters with so much depth for, almost all of them is a great achievement, and good job on Supermassive Games. I wish, right now that I had a VR, and then I would have been able to play the Inpatient, because that would be interesting to see where the prequel, how this game, how this starts. With that said, this wraps up this episode. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Head over to our home base, thatmomentin.com, to read gaming reviews, to get gaming news every single day. Follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at Game More Podcast. You can hang out with us on our Twitch channel where we stream at Game More Podcast. Check out our gaming obsessions over on Instagram, instagram.com/Game More Podcast. Till next time, bye.